All right, so there's this common like trope in F1 that Lance Stroll needs his dad. That if it wasn't for Lawrence Stroll, Lance Stroll wouldn't have a seat. That Lance Stroll would be driving IndyCar, yada yada yada. And it's driven a lot of hatred towards Lance Stroll, and I I don't know. Like looking at the numbers, I don't think it's 100% justified. Like I think that Lance Stroll would still be a okay driver with a seat in Formula One if it wasn't for his dad. And I'm not obviously like I don't like trust fund kids, and I think that in general we should dislike them. But I think that Lance Stroll really isn't like that much of an aberration in Formula One. So let's get to it. Start off with like Formula One drivers in general come from a lot of privilege. Like if you look at like football players, like both American football and soccer, like the majority of football players, come from, you know, uh, I wouldn't say necessarily poor backgrounds, but like aren't rich, right? Like being rich doesn't really help you that much. Like the only soccer player right now that I can really think of who comes from a good background is Erling Haaland. Like his dad played football, but like his dad was like a sub on Man City when Man City was terrible. You know what I mean? And like in American football, obviously Patrick Mahomes, his dad was an athlete, but like like again, it doesn't help you. Even Steph Curry, Del Curry was like a sub. He wasn't that great, right? Like most professional athletes in most other sports come from working class or poor backgrounds, and being wealthy actually kind of hurts you. I think that's not the case in F1. In Formula One, like the majority of the grid comes from extremely wealthy backgrounds or backgrounds that like help you in Formula One. So Max Verstappen, his dad was a Formula One driver. I think he was even teammates with Michael Schumacher. Charles Leclerc, his family was race car drivers. Carlos Sainz, his dad was a race car driver. Lando Norris, his dad is worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And the thing is that like because Formula One is it's like expensive, right? Like if you wanted to play soccer, you can just get a ball, hang out with some friends, and practice your skills. In every minute that you practice car racing as a child costs you money. So you either need a lot of money or you need access to be able to race and learn racing without having that money, right? It's one of those two things. Like it is extremely difficult to get into Formula One without that background. Even Lewis Hamilton, who comes from like the most like average background, I think, of all the successful drivers, like his dad was still like an IT consultant. Like that's not like a poor background. That's just like a middle class background. And he had to work extra jobs in order to afford race time. And this is also true historically, right? Like Michael Schumacher was like the most working class person in Formula One, but like his dad owned like a racetrack, not like Silverstone, like a racetrack for kids, but that allowed Michael free racing time, right, in order to practice. Like that practice is extremely important. Uh, Ayrton Senna, his dad came from a wealthy Brazilian family. Nicky Lauda famously bought his way onto his first team. Jackie Stewart, his dad owned a shrink of car dealerships. Like money helps a lot in Formula One to the point where like if you want to get to Formula One, you probably are coming from a huge amount of money anyway. It's not a rags to riches sport. All that to say that like yes, Lance Stroll is a trust fund kid, but like kind of everyone else on the grid is a trust fund kid. Like Formula One really is a sport of rich kids seeing who can be the most selfish. And like I love the sport. I think it's fun. Like I'll make a lot of videos about it, but like that is like the inherent truth about it. We're not watching, you know, we're not watching Diego Maradona coming from the slums of Argentina to become the most famous soccer player on earth. That's not what this is. Anyway, so let's compare his junior record, right? Because like that is the first big question, right? Like, would Lance Stroll have ever gotten his first seat if it wasn't for his dad's investment in Williams? Well, like his junior record, like if you actually look at it, it's pretty good, right? Like he won F4, he won F3, he won like a Toyota Racing Series. I'm not like incredibly familiar with these lower races, but like this is a pretty good record, right? Like winning F4, winning F3, and winning another racing series. Like he was a competent driver before he got to F1. And like if you compare these to like other juniors of the time, like George Russell won F2, so that's more impressive. But he came in sixth in F3, he came in first in F1. Like yes, this is a more impressive record, but it's not like dramatically more impressive. You look at Lando Norris, like he won F3, he didn't win F2, he came in 25th and second. He won a couple of other series when he was younger. Oscar Piastri, who's kind of like the most hailed prospect, won Formula Two, won Formula Three, won the Formula Renault Euro Cup, right? So yes, Lance Stroll does not compare to this, but if you compare it to like Esteban Ocon, and I think I like honestly that's where I think Lance Stroll is like talent wise. I think he's kind of like an Esteban Ocon, where you put him in a decent car, he's gonna finish ninth through 12th through 13th. Like I think that's his legacy or his destiny. Look at Esteban Ocon, like Lance Stroll is actually like I don't know, like this is kind of like a little bit more impressive, don't you think? Like he won the GP3, he won the European Championship, but he didn't win anything else. While Lance Stroll won 3, 4 Toyota Racing Series. Like these are pretty comparable records. I think that Lance Stroll, you know, could have like the point of this is that like if Lance Stroll had never had his dad, I think he would have entered F1 the same way that like Esteban Ocon did. You look at Alex Albon. Alex Albon hadn't won anything. I mean, he came in third in Formula Two, which is impressive, but like he didn't win Formula Three. Did he even race in Formula Three? Yeah, he came in seventh in Formula Three. Look at Pierre Gasly. He never won any of the Formula ones. He won GP2, but like I don't even think he competed in any of the Formula ones, right? So like basically Lance Stroll's junior record is comparable to these guys. It probably would have taken him like 2 or 3 more years in order to get a seat if his dad didn't partly own a team. He probably would have maybe had to been a reserve driver, maybe would have had to race in Formula 2, win a championship or two there, or come in like top 5 the way that Alex Albon did. But I think Lance Stroll would have eventually found his way to Formula One. Now let's compare him against some benchmarks, because I think this is like where it kind of becomes interesting. So like again, I said that like I think Lance Stroll is basically Esteban Ocon, and he would have just kind of had the same career that Esteban Ocon did. So like both of them raced with Sergio Perez in a pretty similar car, and they kind of had similar results, right? So like 2007, Esteban Ocon actually did really well. He came in eighth, Sergio Perez came in seventh. So he really I mean, he was still the number 2 driver, but like not by a lot, right? But like look at 2018, Esteban Ocon is in 12th, Sergio Perez is in 8th. That's 4 places difference between the two of them, right? Now compare that to the first year with Lance Stroll. Lance Stroll is 15th, Sergio Perez is 10th. That's a 5 place difference between them. I know the points are different, but like that, I think that the places in Formula One matter a lot more than the actual like raw points, right? So like you changed out Ocon for Lance Stroll, and you changed out a 4 place difference with a 5 place difference. And then here Lance Stroll is 11th, Sergio Perez is 4th. This was like a worse year for him, but Sergio Perez really Sergio Perez had been I think this is also like testament to like how much Sergio Perez has just been improving as a race car driver. This 2020 year was really like a phenomenal year, and that was also when he like won the race, right? So like while Sergio Perez has been improving, Lance Stroll has kind of like been exactly where like Esteban Ocon was. And then like compare this to Vettel, right? So obviously like Lance Stroll was nowhere near Charles Leclerc, but like Charles Leclerc was beating Vettel, and like Lando Norris was like, he was just behind Vettel in 2021, and he was what 3 places behind Vettel in 2022. Like again, he didn't perform as well as Charles Leclerc, obviously, but like he wasn't really getting beaten by Vettel in a way that like Charles Leclerc wasn't. Like like finishing just behind him is not that much worse than finishing right before him, right? Um, and then compare this to Alonso. Again with Esteban Ocon. I'm happy I didn't have to like change the standings, but like I just copied them because it's similar years. So like Fernando Alonso was in 10th, Esteban Ocon was in 11th. In 2022, Fernando Alonso was in 9th, Esteban Ocon. Where is Esteban Ocon? Oh wow, Esteban Ocon actually beat him that year. Wow, that's crazy. And then Lance Stroll was 10th, and Fernando Alonso was 4th. So yeah, I mean, I guess in this year like he did like underperform, but even like compare this, right? Like look at 2023, right? So like Fernando Alonso, Lance Stroll, there's a 6 person gap, right? But like Lewis Hamilton and George Russell, there's a 5 person gap. Lando Norris, Oscar Piastri, 3. That's not really that much, but like Alexander Albon and Logan Sargent, there's an 8-person gap. Like, I don't think he's getting beaten by his teammates in like to a degree that other second drivers are getting beaten. So all this to say that like should Lance Stroll be on a top 3-4 team? Like should he be on Aston Martin? No, obviously like it's clear to everybody that Papa Stroll, if Lance wasn't on the team, he would have gone out. He would have probably tried to get a Carlos Sainz or something, to pair with Fernando Alonso or something like that, right? But like, would Lance Stroll have a seat? Would he be like a competent midfield driver? Would he be like a competent second driver that like a third or fourth place team could get if they can't get anyone better? Yeah, I think so. So the point of this is like, was he helped? Obviously, like he jumped the line in order to get to F1. He's gotten on a great car when like other people wouldn't have. But has he been like helped to like an extreme point where he's like just a trust fund kid who's like crashing his car into the wall? I don't think so. I think he's a competent driver who deserves his drive. Anyway, like, comment.